I believe we have a quorum. So with that, we will begin the Economic Development Incentive Committee for today. And if it's okay, we have one new member, so we'll just kind of go real quickly, introduce ourselves, and then and Jessica's online too. So with that, I think we have a quorum. So Jim, if you don't mind, just a quick welcome. And also, if you wouldn't mind saying how long you've served.
Yeah, I just said, my name is Jim Boos. I'm the longest tenured person serving on this committee, but I won't say the number of years. But
And if you don't mind, of what you do and.
Well, my professional career is primarily involves commercial real estate work, but I have a variety of business ventures and restaurants, bars, property, variety of things. So.
Thanks, Jim. My name is Dave Pepcorn. I'm the city commissioner and the deputy mayor, at least for a couple of more weeks. So we'll see how that goes. John.
Hi, I'm John Cosgriff. I'm not sure if I'm semi-employed or semi-retired. So I'm working on that. I do work at NDSU with startup businesses in the research park.
John Eisert. I've been in the banking industry for about 14 years in the commercial banking side, and I've served the whole 2 minutes on this committee.
And Jessica is online. So Jessica, if you want to real quickly say hello and introduce yourself.
I think you're muted.
There you go. Just a second, Jessica. We don't have your volume, so we're going to try to get that. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. Okay. I guess then we'll have to go ahead. So with that, we'll go ahead. Agenda item number 1. Approve the Tax Exempt Review Committee meeting minutes of 4/26/22, and we have that in front of us. If there are any changes or corrections, otherwise we will accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, motion to accept the meeting minutes from April 26, 2022 meeting.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments, changes, or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, Amity Technology LLC, 2A application for property tax incentives. Jim Gilmore is going to get us started. Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Up on the screen, you can see the location of the building they'd be acquiring in the existing building or locating in an existing building. They plan to create an additional 5 jobs. They're located out in this area. They do have the primary sector letter from the Department of Commerce, and with our scoring system, it's a recommendation to approve. I'd like right now the time to kind of introduce the company, and then we'll have that company tell you a little bit about them.
All right, thanks, Jim. Hi, Ryan Oss. I'm with the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. So I'll just make a few quick comments about Amity, and then I'll call Brian Dahl with Amity up to give you some more in-depth details on the project and the company. But just a reminder that Amity is a name that you likely are familiar with, kind of a pioneer and leader in ag equipment, technology and innovation and manufacturing. Global company. Their technology and their product can be found all over the world. They're currently developing a new product line, commercializing and looking to scale that product here in Fargo. Some of the work currently is being outsourced in terms of the fabrication and assembly and welding of the equipment has to go all the way to South Dakota. This new project would allow, in addition to that work being kind of onshored here in the community, they would be adding powder coat and other kind of capabilities in the manufacturing supply chain. So if you're not familiar with powder coat, it's a very in-demand supplier service right now, and I would say one that is probably undermet in the current marketplace. So there would be building capacity in that supplier regard as well. With that, I just want to also mention too, this is a company that is paid over $550,000 in property taxes over the last 7 years amongst a collection of their properties in town, and currently paying about $97,000 just in last year alone. So, Brian, if you want to come up and make a few comments about where you guys are at.
Thank you, Ryan. Glad to see everybody. I have some familiar faces, and Jessica, wherever you are in space, and John, welcome to the what is this, a planning commission?
Economic Development Incentive Commission. There you go.
Economic Development.
Rolls right off your
Incentive
tongue.
Commission. Okay. I was before this same committee, I think 10 years ago, and we've since paid off that. Well, we're paying up now, but we did get an exemption on a building we put in. I think you could see in the upper left-hand corner, it was a roadway, truck terminal and roadway combined with yellow freight. And I've been going and working in that block for 43 years, so I know all the buildings pretty well. We used to own this building in question for a time. The building was originally Gino's Pizza, then Classic Roadsters, or Federal Machine, then Classic Roadsters, then Concord and Composite America and Mellet Plastics, now Blanchard. And unfortunately, Blanchard, the current owner of the building, experienced this murder in the workplace last fall. Terrible, tragic event. Ross Rolshoven was a gumshoe on that one. He investigated the murder. So they're leaving because of that. They're leaving behind a pretty strong workforce. We're hoping that we could pick up some of those workers by buying this building. And in a sense, we're interested in the building because of the 3 rules of real estate: location, location, location. Jim's familiar with that building. We owned that at one time, and were landlords for a very short period, which was not a happy tale. I'll not take your job over. But I can say we've been in this location since 1979, where we're paying taxes, as Ryan pointed out how much. And we're looking to grow in different directions from our current marketplace. We serve a fairly small market, but we kill it. We have like 80% market share in sugar beet harvesting equipment. And when it's a lean year, there's almost no harvesters sold. And when it's a good year, it's hard to build enough. So that's the world we live in. But we have continued to pour a lot of resources into new product development. We have a new product that's being used by the Riverview Dairy in Morris, Minnesota, the second largest dairy in the country. And we're building we call it a crop chaser. These corn choppers that's the main feed for their dairy, chopping silage corn. These choppers are almost $1 million machine, and it takes 3 carts to keep up with the production of one of these choppers. So we've developed a cart specifically for Riverview, but there's a host of others that we think, and they are calling us, who would like those as well. We can't paint the mainframe on this big cart, nor can we paint the mainframes on 3 other products that are our core products. So it's very frustrating. We just live catch can on anyone else in town who can do the painting for us. And when everyone else gets busy, and at the time when we can harvest the best year, we struggle badly. So we are interested in the building for growing our business. And we're at the point where we've put as much plant space on the property we own as we can, and it's either locate here or relocate somewhere else. And I wouldn't, that isn't a veiled threat or anything, but it's just a reality that we're facing. So for us to get a property tax exemption would give us the time in which we're now investing heavily in product development, market development. And just yesterday afternoon, I got a call from a guy in California who's building construction equipment, and he asked if we were interested in buying the business. And that becomes very interesting if we have the capacity to handle it. It's a very large product, and it's something that we had looked at bidding to do contract manufacturing, and they, for whatever reason, they're interested in selling it now. So I won't say any more, but would open it to questions.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions? And I guess I have a couple for Jim on page 14, where we have the different scores. You know, in the year one, the score is 123, and then in year three, it's 138. And I noticed that it's basically 5 jobs a year, and then the payroll basically is at 249, then it goes to 748. Can you kind of summarize that a little bit? Is that a fairly good score from our perspective?
I mean, it's I think in year 3 it's a good score. In year 1, I think it's a little bit above where our minimum is, but we're in most cases we want to look out 3 years because we understand it takes a while for a company to staff up, to fit up, and actually get the number of jobs hired that they expect. So.
And Jim, can you just talk a little bit about the total amount for the exemption? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's on.
I think it's on page 2.
Yeah, it's on page 2. So it'd be $27,000 a year times 5 years. So, a little over, I suppose, $130,000, something like that total. So it's not that large of an exemption given the level of investment that the company's making.
Very good. And Jessica, if you have a question, raise your hand. And anybody here, if you have a question, go ahead. If we don't have any questions, that's fine too. If we're satisfied, then we're ready for a motion. We can do that, whatever the group wishes.
I should note too that Commissioner Pepcorn that the number of jobs, it's 5 in year 1 and it's 15 by year 3. That's the reason for the difference in that scoring system.
Correct. And the other thing is the wages are between $20 and $28 an hour. So obviously those are very good wages too. Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the property tax exemption request for Amity Technology.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. Motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for being in Fargo, and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Number 3, Weather Modification LLC, application for property tax incentives. And Jim will get us started. Jim Gilmore.
Thank you. This is an application from Weather Modification. There would be building a new building up at the airport. It's going to be a major investment, about $22 million. The number of jobs is going to be, I think, about 8 in the first year, and then would increase after that. They do have their primary sector letter, and they scored quite well at 160 in the first year and 170 in year 3. Again, I'll have Ryan kind of introduce the company, then we'll have WeatherMod come up and talk about the business.
Thanks, Jim. So you get to see me twice today. I apologize. So another primary sector company, as Jim mentioned, and I would say, with the weather modification application, this is, a company that's economically diversifying the region. I don't think we're known for our aerospace industry, but I certainly think this gets us steps in the direction towards building out that sector of our economy. Again, another global company, so they've got customers. They're doing work for companies and partners around the world. Jim will tell you about that when he comes up and speaks. But it's really interesting work. I think it's the type of work when we describe weather modification and what companies like weather modification are doing. They're surprised to find out that there's a company like that in Fargo, and surprised to find out that you can actually kind of manipulate and try to control the weather. So very interesting. Part of their work, the environment, the products they're working on tend to be large in nature, requiring, an increase in footprint as they're seeing the level of business activity in this space increase as well. So a company that's received property tax incentives in the past, I think Jim may touch on that a little bit, currently paying just last year alone on the properties that they occupy $216,000 in property taxes and paid over $3.5 million in property taxes over the last 20 years. Company that's adding 8 new employees at an average of $61,000 in salary or $29 an hour average. So with that, I think I'll invite Jim to come up and give you some of the interesting details.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon. Thanks for letting us speak for a few moments, Chairman Pepcorn and committee members. It's really a pleasure to be here. I want to acknowledge I've got with me today Randy Jensen, one of our vice presidents of our organization, and Pat Sweeney, the chairman of the board. And Pat's been involved in this business at weather modification and aviation for more than 40 years. I'm confident if I let him speak, we might be out of here by 5 o'clock. So I've got to keep us moving here. Our company's here with the 5-year tax exemption application, as you have in front of you. And I want to give you a little bit of a snapshot of what we do and what our enterprise has been doing at the Fargo Airport. Weather modification is a more than 60-year-old company that started out in western North Dakota, and we moved this here, the company, coming up on about 29 years ago, and then started building our facilities at the Fargo Airport. And we've, as Ryan mentioned, we've been before the committee in the past on some of our original and expansion construction projects. We've had a great economic impact employing people and growing our business, and most importantly, bringing in revenue from around the world. We really are an aerospace enterprise, probably really, I know we're the largest private aerospace enterprise in North Dakota. And that, not to confuse matters, but our combined enterprise is weather modification and Fargo Jet Center. And it's really, it's 100% owned by our paper holding company. And all of us wear many hats within the entire organization. As a primary sector business, it's exciting to grow and be part of the city of Fargo, both certainly in North Dakota, and bringing unique business in from outside the country. We expect this expansion will allow us to create more jobs, provide well-paying jobs with a skilled labor force. And the really neat thing is that we create careers in aerospace here in Fargo. Of the unique work we do, and I'll show you some examples here in a moment, we really don't have any competition within the region. Certainly some of the aircraft and modification work, we actually don't have any competition in the world. So we've got some unique things that we're doing, and it's fun to be doing them here in Fargo. By having this tax incentive, it's really important to us. It's going to allow us to grow our business more quickly and also purchase and equip this new facility with state-of-the-art equipment that's needed. We're proud also to be a veteran-owned business and have excited to grow this in our hometown of Fargo, North Dakota. This first slide I'm showing you is probably roughly 25-ish years old when we initiated the development of the North General Aviation Area at Fargo's Hector International Airport. And the land we occupy is all owned by the airport authority, and then we lease the land and own the buildings. Prior to this, it was a bean field before we brought this to the airport many years ago. The next slide, Ryan's already mentioned it, but over the snapshot of 20 years of our property taxes paid into the county have now exceeded $3.5 million. This new project will actually, this is an existing shot of our facilities today. that entire row along the front where all the aircraft are parked along the ramp, are all of our facilities that we built over the past 27 years. And the value of all this will actually, because of high construction costs at this time, we're actually going to end up practically doubling the value of our facilities out there. And to give you a quick, that shot includes about 230,000 square feet of space, and we'll be adding another 100,000 square feet. That is it's kind of looking southwest, but so all be added on to our existing. The white is existing, and the blue is the new facility that we're building. I'll give you an idea of what we do inside here. I'm going to play a quick video, and this video is, I'm terrible at, let's see. This video is just a minute long, but it shows the quick snapshot of a sophisticated aerosol and cloud physics research aircraft that we produced in there. So this is an aircraft that came out of the factory in Wichita, Kansas. It's a King Air 350. And with our special authorizations that we own, they're kind of like patents in the industry provided by the Federal Aviation Administration. We're able to equip an aircraft like this, and we have those, I'll call them patents or certificates from the FAA to do this unique work. And this is just one sample and a nice interior and exterior of all the probes that are mounted on the outside, and then all of the data and computer systems that we install on the inside of the airplane. So I'll give you a snapshot of some of those sophisticated equipment and things that we're doing on an airplane. Good. Here's another example. This is the exact same type of airplane. This is actually a photograph we took. It's not photoshopped in there of a similar aircraft that we produced for our clients in China. Here's two brand new King Airs, again, that came from the factory that we specially equipped. We delivered these last year to the Greek Air Force. Beautiful aircraft. And the cool thing about this in Fargo, North Dakota, our vendor partner is Spectrum Aeromed, a manufacturing firm at the Fargo Airport that sells their product worldwide. We are actually with them today at the European Business Aviation Show in Geneva, Switzerland. And we team up with them to do these projects. So their bed systems, their air ambulance systems are in these Greek air ambulance aircraft for them. Another example of that, we worked with the Polish Air Ambulance Service, and these are two brand new Lear 75s that we delivered to them last year. And again, Spectrum was our vendor on those aircraft. So neat stuff. Wanted to show you some examples of that. You're all invited out anytime to see what we do out there and see firsthand on what our sophisticated team is doing with aircraft that we're delivering around the world. With that, we're excited to be here and would entertain any questions you might have. Mr. Mayor, good afternoon.
Sir, does anybody have any questions? And I guess we'll just kind of review real quick. Obviously, it's 8 jobs the first year, and then over 3 years, 18 jobs. And the thing that impressed me, obviously, some of these are the 3 jobs at over $20 to $28, 3 that are $28 to $35, and 2 over $35. So obviously, that's very well-paying jobs, and so that's a good thing. Any other comments or questions from any of the members? Jim?
Just a comment as well on your, as well as a $22 million investment, excluding land, is pretty substantial for what we see. So.
Mr. Chair, this is Jessica Ebling. I need to recuse myself from this specific vote.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we're ready for a motion. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to approve the request for property tax exemption for.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. John, you're not going to tell us any stories about your original, when you did with the original airplanes where they had Vietnam veterans flying the planes?
I think Pat would have to address that. There are a few old Cessnas involved.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
This will be on City Commission on Tuesday, so.
Very good. And number 4, the EDIC University Mixed Use. Jim will get us started on that one.
This is a preliminary request for tax increment financing. The way our new policy works is we first bring you the concept. We have not looked at the financials yet in terms of how much money might be needed, or I haven't done a detailed study of the area, but really want to kind of get your initial review on whether or not we should be working on this redevelopment here, and whether or not the site is appropriate for it. I should note that the site would first have to be rezoned. That's in process, and so again, we aren't looking at the zoning or the specific need for TIF money yet, but wanted to see first if you think it's generally appropriate for redevelopment. I got some photos of the block. It's an older commercial development on the east side along University in the 1600 block. I believe the buildings are from either the late 1950s or early 1960s. See this building here. There's 2 other properties on the north side of the block. There was a pharmacy there, and I believe there's some type of a restaurant. The backside of the block towards the west is, I believe, 8 single-family homes. They've long been renter occupied, and there's one owner that had owned this entire block, and the developer is proposing to buy and clear the entire block. Again, they certainly older homes. Again, they haven't done a detailed review of the condition yet, but we can certainly see some deterioration on the exterior. The proposed development would be a new 5-story building covering most of the block, with housing on the upper floors and commercial on the main floor. Maybe at this point, I'll have Jesse Craig to come up and talk a little bit about the project. And again, what we're looking for here is just kind of a motion one way or the other, whether or not you feel we should move ahead and do the financial review on this block, and whether or not it's appropriate for redevelopment and the level of incentives. So, Jesse?
Gentlemen, 127 unit mixed use project, about 13,350 square feet on the main level. Like Jim mentioned, it is everything except Dwayne's Pizza, but I'm also in agreement with him, under contract with him, to include him in the new project, so it'll be the entire block. The 8 homes are pretty bad shape, but we plan on donating them to Habitat for Humanity, so they'll be moved off location onto new lots and rehabbed for other owners or renters, wherever they choose to do with it. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty basic. I mean, working with engineering on detention, underground heated parking garage, We're setting it back as designed, so it'll be set back away from the residential area. But I think they'll be, and from the conversations we've had with the homeowners across the street, they're going to enjoy this a lot better than they will with lighted homes that don't even have paved driveways. I mean, they're pretty rough shape. So, looking for a tax incentive to cover the demo, soil correction, relocation of the existing tenants that are in there. But we also plan on having, I think, at least 4 of the major tenants will be coming back into the new property. So we've been working hand in hand with them to retain them because that's kind of the flavor of the neighborhood. So, any questions for me?
I have a couple questions. First of all, do we have a ballpark how long the exemption would last? I think it's great. Obviously, that strip mall needs a lot of, that it was time for that to go. Do you have, or is that something that we won't know until we do all the review?
I mean, we won't know for sure, but I think this will run at least the full 15 years. It's at least if the full request was approved, but until we do the financial review, we really can't give you that number. But, the amount of assistance that they're requesting is, I can't remember if you have been.
And I guess the other question I had too was, we had talked about the Renaissance zone, like having satellite blocks. Is that something that is possible, or is that something that has been looked at?
It wouldn't be that beneficial for this project. It's more beneficial when there's condos involved because of property tax exemption. The request is for $5 million in TIF assistance. That's a large amount. And look at the value of the development, it may never really generate that much. And so, that's something else we'll have to look at in the financial analysis.
The other thing, Jesse, the talking to the neighborhood, that's very important. And obviously we're going through one where we knocked down a bunch of houses and then we're promised and now they're not showing up. And so I do think that I don't know what the process is and if you've talked to them, but I do think that's very important from our perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, firsthand know how important that is with Oak Grove. I mean, 7 years worth of process there that we had several meetings, I think 13 in all. So we've reached out, preliminary just to, the homeowners that are impacted, right away. But we'll have follow-up meetings with them once we are, I just got the rendering today. So want to have them something that they can actually visualize rather than just a blocked out, like we had before. So once we get a little further into that, we'll definitely have those meetings. I think I've a proven track record in that with making sure I don't run into, big problems or headlines in the newspaper along the way. So.
And I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you continue to have Dwayne's Pizza on University Drive. That's a critical part of this.
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the major ones down there for sure. So
I'm just kidding. Any other comments? And so, Jim, can you talk about this? Is just kind of an initial proposal, and then will you come back with more specific numbers? Is that the process?
Yeah, the next step really is the rezoning, and so I really can't do much until it's rezoned because the renewal plan has to be based on the zoning, and I'm not sure where you're at in the rezoning process, but that'll probably take a couple months, and then after that, Matt, who's also on the phone, will be looking at the financial on this one to see whether or not the $5 million is justified, whether or not the rate of return is appropriate for that level of assistance.
And I guess at the same time, if you don't mind, just making sure you update us with the neighborhood meetings, sure. Just so people know what's going on. I think that's very important too. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Are there any comments or questions? I apologize for talking so much. So what's the next step, Jim? I mean, basically, this is just a motion to further it. How will the process go after this? Then it goes to planning for the zoning? Or?
Yeah, this recommended motion would be to approve the development of a renewal plan and the financial review.
So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have
Jessica
a motion
can
and a
have
second. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Very good. Thank you, Jesse. And number 5 is the EDIC Riverfront Apartments, Block 3. Jim.
This is a request for tax increment financing from Kilbourne Group. They are looking at developing city-owned property of an old school district warehouse building and another property that had actually been a military processing center. That processing center had been vacant for quite some time. The school district building, I think the city stores some vehicles in there in the winter, but otherwise it's pretty well vacant. So really in fitting with the downtown riverfront plan, fitting with the downtown in focus plan, both those plans called for this site along the river to be redeveloped as housing. The city went out and did requests for proposals for the school district property. The city commission did select the Kilbourne Group to proceed with an apartment complex with parking that would be about at least 100 housing units. They have been recommended for approval for Renaissance zone incentives for 5 years, and then this request is for an additional approximately 1.4 million in tax increment financing. In this case, none of that money would be used for land write-down. It would all be for either public facilities or demolition. They're buying the site from the city. The current building part of it's in the right-of-way, so part of that sale agreement will require that the building be demolished. So this sort of an unusual thing where you're buying the property then required to demolish the building. But the new development, again, over 100 housing units. We have sent this one to our financial advisor. Matt Sacklenberg is on the line. And so maybe I'll just turn him over to him at this point so he can walk through the project, and then we'll have Kilbourne Group talk a little bit about it and show some images. Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Very well.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I think most of you, except for one person, have heard me kind of go through my analysis, kind of what I'm looking at, but I'll kind of quickly review that. So I look at all the details that go into making up the pro forma. I make up my own pro forma based on kind of what the developers provided me, based on what I believe is reasonable as well. And then I look at the two major factors are the coverage, the debt service coverage, and the internal rate of return. And those are what I kind of look at to help determine kind of the but-for test, if you will. Is this project viable but for this public assistance? And so with this project, after going through and developing my own pro forma, I looked at the internal rate of return, and that was coming out to be 13.8%. And for a project like this, I'm looking in the 10 to 15% range for an internal rate of return. So I think this kind of falls right in there. On the coverage, typically looking at least a 1.2 times. That oftentimes that is what the lender or the bank requires in order to lend the money to the developer. In this case, we're looking at without the TIF, we're looking at just below at a 1.19 times coverage, and with the TIF and the Renaissance Zone assistance, we're looking at in the 140 range. So that gets them plenty over. And I apologize, I didn't mention, without TIF, for the internal rate of return, we're looking at just under 7%. So that's certainly on the low end and kind of outside of the range that I would think that would be acceptable for investors. I'm happy to answer any questions on my report.
Very good. Are there any questions? I guess one question I have is, so the Renaissance Zone runs the first 5 years, so really the TIF doesn't start until the 5th year, is that correct? Or
Yeah,
how-
actually the 6th year. So the first 5 years, they would not be paying property taxes. And then the length of the TIF will depend on, the value and the mill levy. I mean, I think Matt and I were estimating that might be another 8 to 10 years, but could be a little faster, could be longer if the counties, decided not to participate.
Okay, any other questions? And now, if Kilborn, if you want to get up and introduce yourself and describe it, thank you.
Sure. I'm Keith Lear with Kilborn Group. And Jim had asked me just to give a quick sort of synopsis of the.
I asked Keith just to bring a few of the images, because I don't know if you
Yep.
recall these. Probably haven't seen these before. I know the mayor and Commissioner Pepcorn have.
So again, the site is on the corner of 4th Avenue and 2nd Street. So kind of immediately across the street from 2nd Street from the river. General layout of the site, you can see the main floor of the building is basically comprised of a podium level of indoor parking. And then we're also working through an encroachment agreement to have some exterior parking that is sort of on the east side of the site as well. A couple different images. So the one on the left, this is sort of the bird's eye view. You can think of sort of a Block 9 tower looking back at the site. And then the one on the right would sort of be from kind of the IMCOM Center across the river looking back at the site. This is the south elevation, so this will be from 4th Avenue. The podium chunk of the building is comprised mostly of brick. There's some decorative precast stonework along there, and then some storefronts along the south side. The upper portions of the building, we're looking at an architectural metal panel with balconies and then some visual reliefs and sort of some kind of wood look accents within the building. This is the east elevation, so from the river side of the project. In the center of the building, you can see this is actually sort of an inside of the building with a large rooftop area over the top here. So our intent is that we're having a rooftop patio that has a good visual connection, an experience connection to the river views. This would be the west elevation of the building, so on the 3rd Street side. And then also this is the main entrance of the building for both parking and the residential entrance on this side. And then this would be the north elevation of the building or the railroad track elevation of the building. Any question from a just?
Can I ask you, so what's the number of apartments and about how many people would be tenants in this building?
So
approximately.
We're at 114 units right now. So, north of 150 people, residents in this building. And then parking, we have about 135 or so. We're still working through that on the inside of the building, and then another 20 or so on the exterior of the building right now.
So the parking is on the main or underground? Or
Main floor, yeah. So, or the street level, looking at elevation 100.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
It's just had a couple comments. I think this fits just exactly what we're looking for with the downtown in focus plan and the riverfront development plan. It brings more housing to the downtown and brings activity along the river. The main floor is going to have that nicer brick and stone look, and so I think it really is a good fit for the area. It's a major investment in the downtown. I think will pay off in the long run.
How many parking spots did you say?
We're over 150 right now on the site, but still working through our final program.
I think your goal is to have one per bedroom. Is that sort of the?
Yes. Yep.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Congratulations. That's the end of our meeting. It's 1:47. Thank everybody for coming. Have a great afternoon.